Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Freddie. I'm chair of the BCS Digital Divide Specialist Group. I'm delighted to have the committee members here, Dave Donaghy, who is our vice chair, Margaret Ross, who is our events liaison officer, and also Mark West, who is our secretary. And we're delighted to organize and jointly host this event with the WCIT, which we'll hear a lot about from our two speakers today. One of them is Jason Scott Taggart. Let me just say a few words about him. I don't think I'm going to do much justice, but I will try. Jason has been an IT manager for 30 years, right? So he's a very well qualified IT professional, and he's been part of the Worshipful company of information technologies for 6 years. We will let him tell us about what that is all about. And most of his career, he's been working in financial services. He's always had a keen interest in how technology can be used to address society's challenges. And today's topic about homelessness is one of them. And then our other speaker is Sean. Sean Sadler is also a member of our Digital Divide Specialist Group with the BCS. So he has this sort of a unique position to be in both the WCIT as well as the BCS. He's been IT leader for over 22 years across the whole spectrum of IT, both within the private and public sectors. So delighted to have both of you here today. And what I'd like to do is to just sort of let Jason take the floor and take us through this very important session. By the way, we've had a series of events already, covering from dementia to autism, to some local initiatives across the country, and then finally to end the year, delighted to just have this sort of strong collaboration between sort of two significant, prominent IT organizations. So Jason, over to you.
Thank you ever so much, Freddie, and thank you everybody for inviting us along. This is a great opportunity, and I'm embarrassed to say that I don't know enough about the BCS, so this is going to be a reciprocal learning between the pair of us as well. I've got the pleasure of being joined by Sean, who I'll hand over to later in the deck, and we're going to share the presentation. As Freddie said, we're both members of the company, of the Worshipful Company of Information Technologists, and Sean is also a BCS member as well. So what are we going to talk to you about? So we're going to tell you a bit about what the company is, what a livery company is about, and why are we involved with homelessness? Where did that come from, and what do we do in that space? A lot of the work we do now is broader in digital poverty, so we'll talk a bit about that and how that is relevant. And then what we'd like to focus on is what you can do and what we can do together. That's the main takeaway that we hope to have from the session. And as Freddie said, please do fire the questions into the chat as we go along, so that we can have some good Q&A, not just questions but debate, suggestions. We're really keen to have ideas about how we could move forward together on this topic. So, starting with the history lesson, what is the Worshipful Company of Information Technologists? So we are the 100th of 110 livery companies in the City of London, so in the square mile. Livery companies emerged out of the Middle Ages from guilds, from organisations that represented trades. I've got the livery badges there that of all of the 110 in the top right-hand corner to test you on later. But basically they represented the professions, the trades in the square mile, and if you wanted to practice those, you had to be a member of the relevant guild or livery company. And the older ones are such as the mercers, who are merchants. You've got tallow chandlers who made candles. You've got ones you may have heard like the goldsmiths, ironmongers, fishmongers. So they basically regulated those professions, those trades, and represented them and set standards for operations within the square mile. There is a precedence. They are ordered. And I was reminded before we started of an interesting story. The merchant tailors and the skinners are in the precedence ranked 1 to 110. They are 6th and 7th, and there's a long-running dispute between them about who should be 6th and who should be 7th. So every Easter they swap places, and that's where the phrase that 6 and 7s comes from. So a bit of history and a lot of the language that comes with the organisation. We are 800 members strong, approximately, which makes us one of the larger companies. And so that should just highlight, compared to, I think, the BCS, I think I was told is 63,000 or something. So a relevant thing when we talk later about how we can operate together is that we are different in scale. Roughly half of those are freemen. So when you're accepted into a livery company, you're offered to become a freeman and get freedom of the City of London. When you've been with the company a few years, the court may elect you to become a liveryman, which is a more senior position within it. We are what's called one of the modern companies. So hopefully you'd work that out, that the Worshipful company of information technologists was maybe one of the more modern companies. We originated around 1992. And later became a full livery company. So we haven't been operating in the city for that long formally as a company. And we have 4 pillars, which is important. So one of the most important is charity. So a lot of what we do is use that fact that we've got 800 plus members who are experienced IT professionals, usually later on in their career joining the company, and therefore they have a lot of skills, a lot of networking that they can leverage, and we offer that up in pro bono. So we do volunteering of a generic style, but we also do very specific kind of consultancy for specific IT requirements. So charity is a big part. We do have some modest funds. We're not as wealthy as some of our longer standing colleagues that have got assets in the city maybe and have had for quite some time. We are lucky enough to have a hall. So roughly half of the livery companies have halls in the City of London, and a lot of them are very grand, and we have the pleasure of having lunches and dinners in going around and seeing the history and the grandeur of the other halls. Ours is rather more modest, but we're still extremely lucky to have a hall. And so in that hall, we perform our business, and we do give some grants, relatively modest, but we do like to leverage the fact that we're actually a large, extensive network of more senior IT professionals in the charity sector. Education is the second pillar. We have 2 schools that we support, the Lillian Bayliss Technology School and Hammersmith Academy. So education is really important to us. Obviously, we particularly focus on STEM and that kind of area of technology, but not exclusively. So promoting that and both within the city but outside as well. It's very important to say that the livery companies are based within the square mile, and that's their focus, to promote, the City of London, but it's not exclusive. So some of the work that we do across all 4 of these pillars goes national and even international. Fellowship, so a posh way of saying socials and friendship, and so having fun together, and we have a very active social calendar, as well as being one of the larger memberships. We're also one of the more active companies as well. There's a great sort of variance between the 110 in how active they are in these different areas and the different pillars, and what they're done. We're very proud of the fact that we're quite an active company as well. And lastly, and where I started the history lesson, we represent the industry as well. So we try and promote. Some of the companies have very formal, so the goldsmiths still are involved in setting the gold standard, for example, and how the industry is done there. We have great links across. There is a big DNA mix between the BCS and the WCIT. Quite a few of the past presidents are past masters of the WCIT. So we have a master who joins in the autumn and serves a 12-month stint as the head of the company, and then they hand the baton on to next. And a lot of those have actually also acted as presidents of the BCS. So large crossover between the 2 organisations. Lastly, back to the history lesson, we are a part of local government, not as much as freemen and liverymen were in the past, but the Corporation of London, and that's the Guildhall that you can see the photo of in the bottom right hand corner, that local government is quite different. It's not a borough of Greater London. It is the local government of the square mile, and it operates quite differently. we have, for example, if you're a liveryman of the livery company, you actually get to vote for the Lord Mayor each year as well. So we have a semi-formal role still in the form of local government. So that is the WCIT, which is a bit easier to say than Worshipful Company of Information Technologists. And happy to take any questions if there's more on our background as we go. So the topic of today, though, so WCIT Homelessness Panel. So I chair the Homelessness Panel, so a committee on this topic within our company. I also chair a working group on digital poverty, so which is trying to bring together some of the other committees and areas of interest. The company is made up of various panels and committees that look after the various areas that we're interested in, the 4 pillars, and going down to more detail around those. The history is that we actually made a particularly large donation to Thamesreach, one of the larger homelessness charities in London a few years ago, and that was to build a IT classroom and to fund a trainer for them to use in their education centre, which is designed to help people who are homeless or at risk of becoming so, and get them off the streets and into employment. So we did that, and we needed some light governance over that donation because of the scale of it. So we set up a working group around homelessness, or Thamesreach working group. Now that group of people got so enthusiastic about the topic and actually started talking a lot about what technology could do broader, that we actually evolved into a standing panel, because the overhead on the governance of Thamesreach wasn't that much. So we actually spent a lot of our time thinking about, well, how else can we help? What you're seeing in front of you is actually how we sort of formalized that as we went from being just a working group into being a standing panel of the company. Starting with our vision, so a world where everyone has a safe, stable and comfortable home. That's basically what everybody, we feel, should be able to have.
How do I tell my boss that I need him to tell?
Somebody's not on mute. So a world where everyone has a safe, stable and comfortable home. That's the vision. That's what we're trying to contribute towards. The mission is how we're doing that. Well, through the use of technology, we will help those who are homeless or at risk of becoming so. And that can be in any sense, you know. So we are technologists, and it's in 2 main ways that as technologists, we do that mission. The first is by helping charities in the sector to be more efficient and more effective. So one of the most common things I get asked even before lockdown is Jason, do you know where I can get some secondhand or cheap computers for this charity? I think in my 30 years as a manager, an IT manager, that's been the most common question I've been asked in this kind of space. And obviously during lockdown, and as digital poverty bites, that's become ever more important. So helping charities to access technology. Jason, the Wi-Fi in our office is awful. Can you help? So getting a network engineer to go and do a pro bono audit of their network. Those in themselves are not directly associated with homelessness, but we are helping the aim, achieving the vision, by helping charities in this sector do that. So that is, to be honest, that's our most common request and the area that we operate in more. The other is directly where we do technology associated with problems to do with homelessness and digital poverty. And we're going to give you a few examples later on. As a card carrying geek, that's where I get more excited, is where we actually maybe use technology to solve a thorny problem or advance more directly the mission statement. So how do we do it? What's the strategy to achieve the mission and move towards the vision? Well, as I've said, pro bono and volunteering is a big one. We're not a huge organisation, but we have very valuable resources in those members, and so we try and leverage that as much as possible. We believe, obviously, a lot of that is tackling the symptoms, and we believe that part of our purpose is to actually try and change attack the causes as well. So using our name to get access to talk to people, to try and lobby, to raise awareness on the topic is another big part of what we expect to do. And when we've debated the vision and mission and how we achieve it through strategy, we've also keep coming back to the point that we're not primarily around fundraising. So important when you talk about, your strategy is not just what are you doing, but what are you not doing. And we don't believe that our modest kind of number of resource is best deployed in trying to do fundraising. We'll leave that to other organizations. Like I said, we do small grants here and there, but it's the leveraging our knowledge and our network, which is what we try and do, and have been very successful in doing so. So digital poverty, I did mention this, the Homelessness Panel has also convened a working group around digital poverty. What we've seen is that increasingly we were talking about topics that were not just relevant to homelessness. Those people who are sleeping rough are the most extreme example of poverty in many ways, and digital is no exception. So as you all may know, it's become a matter of subsistence now. You cannot claim benefits without having an online presence, and an online presence that you maintain. So it's not even a case of just logging in and doing it once. You actually have to demonstrate that you're attempting to look for work. You have to have an address that things can be done to, both a physical and a virtual address. And so digital poverty and digital access and inclusion has become a matter of subsistence, not just of advantage. As long as I can remember, I've been helping people to sort of improve their CVs on word processors and try and get the edge in getting a job in that respect. But now it's a case of helping somebody who's dyslexic, who doesn't have access to even a smartphone, to log on to a website and claim benefits. So it's becoming acute, and the divide is becoming wider, which is frightening. So we often found, particularly in lockdown, that the topic we were trying to attack was actually digital poverty through everyone, and wasn't limited just to those that were at risk of becoming homeless or sleeping rough, for example. Thames Reach, the originator of the working group that became the panel, was a prime example. The employment centre that we have the classroom in is used by the whole of the community. It's primarily for people that are homeless or at risk of becoming so, but it's not exclusively. And also they support people ongoing. So once they've been through, that's not the end of the assistance. Community Tech Aid is another organisation that we've worked a lot with. They started during lockdown, and they are about getting device and connectivity to people in primarily in Lambeth and Southwark, but across South London. And they started very modestly and have grown rapidly and been very successful. And we in our modest way, we've worked with them and tried to help them in doing that. And that is a prime example again of where we got Thames Reach and Community Tech Aid partnering together to target where they directed some of those devices and that connectivity. But the demand from children across the breadth, as they were trying to do classes during lockdown, some of these things will no longer be a surprise to you because they were well reported during lockdown. What is not being reported now is that continues. That it is heartbreaking to see a household where a child is still trying to do their online homework on a smartphone, using a cell network to do that, rather than actually having broadband into the house and having even a tablet, let alone a laptop or a desktop to do that on. And that means that they are at a disadvantage, and that's at a disadvantage even when they've got a device and connectivity. So think about those children, because post-lockdown, those lessons have stayed hybrid. Homework before lockdown was often done online anyway. So digital poverty is a challenge across the board, and that's why we became founding members as well, community board members of the Digital Poverty Alliance when that was formed. This is right in that kind of agitate, lobbying, raising awareness kind of. We wanted to box above our weight, and we needed partners to do that. The fact that I knock on people's door and say I'm from the Worshipful Company of Information Technologists means that they will often talk to me when they wouldn't have done otherwise if it was just Jason knocking on the door. So I'm very lucky in that respect. at a national level and actually international level, the Digital Poverty Alliance is allowing us as a whole broad spectrum of organisations, including, I'm pleased to say, the BCS as well. We can try and influence policy and do that in a very data-driven, scientific kind of way. And the third example area on this slide is exactly one of those. So David Richards is a member of the Worshipful company. Him and his wife Jane have formed a foundation, a charitable foundation. He's a very successful IT entrepreneur, and he's putting a lot back into society now. One of the projects that, again, our panel is helping them with is the Dryden Estate project. Dryden Estate is a large council estate in Sheffield, and in partnership with Sheffield City Council, who own the estate, the University of Sheffield, and the David and Jane Richards Foundation, we're installing broadband fibre into 350 council houses that didn't previously have internet access. And the University of Sheffield are doing an academic study, research on the social value, the benefit that those households get from the internet access, the devices that we provide, and the digital services that they then access over that. And the whole point of this is that David is passionate about demonstrating to local and national government that actually that kind of investment pays massive dividends, and that really connectivity, the internet, digital services should be considered the fourth utility, which is a phrase you may have heard before. So after water, gas and electricity, and actually we've had some success in that space because laws have started to be changed to actually treat it in a similar way. So in the same way that your electricity and gas can't be cut off without very strict criteria being followed, that's now true of internet access as well. So there are advances being made in that space. The Dryden Estate project will hopefully give some independent, objective, academic-based research that will demonstrate the social value of that kind of investment. And we're just they're lighting the fibre as we speak. It should, by the beginning of next year, we'll actually be starting to do the study of the impact. And because we've learned such a lot of lessons in getting that going in Sheffield, we're now looking to extend that into London as well, potentially. So that's a project that we're really excited about. And that's, again, we've helped oil the wheels in making some of that happen. We've introduced people in local government and got some technical experts at times. And that's a real good example of how the Worshipful company tries to operate and add value to the good work that other potentially larger organisations are doing. And at that point, I'm now going to hand over to Sean, who's going to talk about some more direct kind of technological impact we've had on or been associated with in homelessness. So Sean, over to you.
Great, thank you very much, Jason, and hi everyone. So yeah, as Jason said, I'm a member of the BCS, but also the Homelessness Panel of the WCIT. And with the WCIT Homelessness Panel, we, here's three examples really where we've had some input from a technology perspective to really help address homelessness or the effects of homelessness. Obviously, everyone's aware of the big issue and the fact that you have your vendors on the high street that obviously, for their perspective, if you buy big issues from them, they still have to actually, they have enough money to buy them in the first instance from big issue themselves. They can make a little bit of money from that, and it's enough to sustain them, obviously, as much as they, as long as they sell enough copies. Big issue these days, I'm sorry, I'm trying to this sort of thing, but I guess, change in tack. The issue that vendors were facing in this way was nobody, or very, very few people actually carry around any change or money on them these days. We're all very much used to using our card or our phones, Google Pay, Apple Pay, etc. So then when it came to paying the vendors for a magazine, say it was generally a case of, sorry, I don't have any change, I'm afraid. Much as I'd love to buy the big issue, and maybe some of this is close to people's hearts, such as it is ours, they just didn't physically have the change, and so there'll be lots of sales that were lost. Of course, The Big Issue themselves came up with this innovative way. Let's use these remote terminals, which are contactless, and really they just engaged with us to get our advice on, how best to roll this out. And what they did is they rolled this out obviously on a pilot basis, and the results back were really, really encouraging. That's something that we're looking to follow up with them on as well. But obviously now there's no excuse really that people can't buy Big Issue when they're out on the street. The second one is Beam. So Beam is actually a website that it does crowdfunding for homeless people or refugees, and through doing so you can directly contribute, and you can actually track that person that you are sponsoring ultimately, to see how they're progressing, because it's generally to help them get some training so that they actually can get into a career and get themselves either off the streets or into a better paid job, so they can not be at the risk of homelessness. So what we did in that instance, we actually worked with them to help set up their website. So if you are interested in going to view that, and please do, I think it's a fantastic website. It's beam.org, so beam.org. And then finally, Salvation Army. So Salvation Army had this great idea, this pop-up accommodation, which they called nap pads. And this is really for rough sleepers. And the innovation with them, so the self-contained pods, ultimately, they have a bed, naturally, they have a sink and a toilet. But I think more importantly, they also have a lockable door. And that's something that, people have said, homeless, I think that's that security that they don't have when they're out on the street and they can be attacked at any time. So really great innovation by Salvation Army. But not just this, didn't just want to provide this sort of temporary pop-up accommodation. They also wanted to actually use technology to understand if those people were still breathing or not, and if not, then emergency services can be alerted, and it gives those responders vital minutes to save a life. Now, the sensors themselves are based on technology that's used to combat the sudden infant death syndrome known as SIDS. So that was again something that we collaborated with them. They attended one of our panels that happens once a quarter, and that was something that we followed up with Malcolm to talk about. Okay, thank you very much, Gwyn. It might be good to talk to you a bit more about this in a bit, actually. If there's any questions on that. Okay, next slide, please, Jason. So how are we working together then, or how would we like to work together going forwards? I think this has already been mentioned. The WCIT and the BCS have members from both organisations. Freddie is also a member of both organisations, and there will be countless others within both organisations as well. Great thing also is that we're very much committed. So we have the Digital Divide Specialist Group, of which a number of committee members are on this chat, as Freddie pointed out, who are also committed to doing something about digital poverty and addressing the digital divide. And ultimately, by doing so, we can look to address homelessness through the use of innovative technology, whether that be providing technology or providing support in how that technology is used, or connectivity as well. So we're leading initiatives addressing to address those who are homeless, and what we want to do, because as you know, any successful organisation or a collaboration will result in a greater sum than the sum of those parts. And what we're hoping that we'll get from today is that by socialising what the Homelessness Panel's doing, and Freddie's going to talk a little bit about the digital divide shortly as well, people that are members of one or other organisations, or even none, that you would come and join us. Come and join our panels, or come and join the BCS Specialist Digital Divide Group, and really help us to make a difference here, because I think, as we all know, this thing is not going to get any better. We do have this cost of living crisis, and the sooner that we can work together, to really create a positive momentum, the better, really. And then finally, as Jason pointed out, the BCS, WCIT are community board members of the DPA as well. So I think just to borrow a slogan that Freddie has used in the past is about join the dots. So how can we ensure that we're all working in a coordinated manner, and know where we know organisations or people that have certain initiatives, as Jason just pointed out with the Dryden Estate, then we can just connect them together and make sure that we can provide what they require going forwards. Okay, next slide, please, Jason. So from a WCIT Homelessness Panel perspective, we use what's called the 3 A's: the awareness, the agitate, the activity. So this is how you can help if you're a member of the WCIT already. You can help to provide that awareness by socialising what the Homelessness Panel is for, what we're looking to achieve, and really just trying to identify any other use cases or where we may be able to assist, and really, just bring them into contact with us or connecting us. It's also about agitating. So we're agitating for change. We want to make sure that the government and other institutions are changing policies and really starting to take these issues seriously, and really putting some money and weight behind it ultimately. And then last but not least, activity. So I think it's plain, I think we can all talk the talk, but it is ultimately about how can we directly make a difference? How can we put our hands up? How can we volunteer to actually do something which we feel is going to make a difference, and where we feel we're making an impact, and obviously by doing so, we get a lot back in return. Any questions on that before I hand you over to Freddie for the final slide? Okay, if you can go to the final slide, please, Jason. I'm going to hand you over to Freddie, who's just going to talk about this Life in the Digital Divide.
Thank you, Jason and Sean, for sort of talking about this topic. Yeah, I think from my perspective, what I am sort of finding out is that there are many great initiatives out there, right? Across, all kinds of organizations and individuals themselves. There's a lot of things going on. But what also struck me is the fact that despite all those great effort, the question is, are those things making a difference to the people on the ground, right? And the answer is yes and no, right? Yes, in the sense that if everything that we do, even sometimes when I think about it, right, what can I do? I can't possibly do anything, but that's not true. Even if I can just do something to help one person, help one person to be more educated, to understand, and therefore they know how to take the next step, then I think that is worth doing. But what we're doing here is more than just helping the one person, right? Because I think another level, if we really want, and I'm really glad that Elizabeth Anderson from the Digital Poverty Alliance is here today too, if we really want to end digital poverty by 2030, then unless we do something more significant, more impactful, then all this great effort would not get us far enough. And I think that is the concern that many of us here have, and that's the reason why many of us are working together, right? So I want to sort of take this opportunity to sort of give you an idea about how we can all get involved in whatever capacity that we choose, because there's nobody saying we should only do this and not do that, right? I completely welcome whatever that's been out there today. Please continue to do so. But we also try to find and create opportunities where if we're able to work together jointly, for example, here, what we're hearing from the WCIT is that there are, as an organization with 800 members, one of the key areas of focus is around homelessness and how they use technology to help them. So if you're interested in doing that, please come and join them, right? You may have something that you're working on already, that's fine. But I think, if we join our, this is why I call it join and does. If we join things up, then hopefully the impact will be more holistic, more strategic, more sustainable, more scalable. And that is why we're trying to do this. The more we can join our efforts, the better. If we can have more join up thinking and more join up actions, that impact would go further than what I'm seeing also many today, whereby they don't go find out. The worst thing is all the effort potentially can stop at some point just because it ran out of steam. So this is why we need to do something a bit more significant if we can. And this slide here is just to give everybody an idea about how you can possibly get involved. If you look at this as a sort of a spectrum from the left to the right, everybody can start from the left, right? Just becoming a supporter. So a supporter means either you join the Digital Poverty Alliance, which is, you know, easy to do, right? Because then you say, look, I firmly believe in this thing. I want to support them. Please join. If you are a BCS member today, or if you are not a BCS member, consider joining the Digital Divide Specialist Group. Please do, right? Because what we're trying to do is to harness the power, as we said before, of its 63,000 members on one side. And now joining the WCIT, we have 800 members. But remember, joining the dots is also joining the dots across at least 13 other UK tech communities, right? And therefore, in total, we have at least about 130,000. Just imagine how we can potentially socialize what we need to do with, you know, those organizations and those number of individuals to get them to be able to mobilize into more concerted efforts in some areas like homelessness. If you are aware of somebody else doing homelessness, please come and join Jason and Sean and have that conversation, for example, right? We're not asking you to do something, you know, complicated or whatnot, right? But so start being a supporter, and that's all you need to do. And then if you want to do a bit more, then become an ambassador of the DPA. And this is where all we're asking you to do is to help to signpost, help to make people more aware, be a bit more active in terms of getting the message out there, right? And the DPA this year is very new. It's only celebrated 1 year anniversary, but already they have launched the UK Digital Poverty Evidence Review, where they've come up with 5 core principles, and that is now leading to the formulation of a national delivery plan. And what that means is that if everybody knows what is happening in the national delivery plan towards solving digital poverty, once again, you know, come and join those activities or be a supporter of those activities or do something in addition to that. And this is where it goes all the way to the right-hand side, right? Supporting an action area is one way to do it. And then if you are truly passionate and you have the ability, so Jason, you talk about David Richards. Yeah, that is an example of an individual, but again, he's not working on his own. He's working with the WCIT, working with Sheffield University, working with the local council. That is a great example, right? And Dave Donaghy, who is the vice chair of the Digital Poverty Alliance, too. He's the sub-branch chair of the Bristol and Bath BCS local group. And there's an example of yet another individual and his local community trying to do something in their own area. Right, so you can see the spectrum is broad. Everybody can do something. And our message to you all is thank you for joining us today. And if you're wondering about how to get involved, I hope the message is really simple. If not, come and reach out to me, because I started in the same place about 2 years ago, asking the question, what is this thing? Wow, it's so huge. How can I possibly do anything? To now being the chair of the BCS Digital Divide Specialist Group. And for me, the sole purpose is that I think I'm doing something really simple that I can do, which is if I can find a way to socialize to the 63,000 members of the BCS, that is my way of contributing. Do you see what I mean? So I'm hoping that if I can do the same thing, if we all can do the same thing today with everybody who's joined this call today, take a piece of this message away, which is today I've heard about homelessness, about how we can use technology, and Sean talks about 3 examples there, right? So let's find a way to join them all up. All right, so I hope that is simple enough. What I'd like to do is to open to the floor and take any questions that you have. And please, let this be interactive. Ask your questions away. Anyone? I do have a first question just to get the ball rolling. Yeah, Jason, this is for you, right? You know, you say you've been a member of the WCIT for 6 years already. How did you get involved, and why did you get involved?
I got involved so I could learn how to come off mute. So there we go. Right. Sorry about that. I got involved, but most of my career has been in the city or in Canary Wharf. So I was physically located and working in financial services, which is obviously one of the primary lines of business for the city and for Canary Wharf. but I actually at university studied politics and have always been very interested in society, sociology, and how we can actually advance society. So technology coupled with an interest in the history of the square mile, coupled with politics, meant that I had an awareness of delivery companies, wanted to learn more, and looked to see if there was an IT livery company, and to my great surprise, there was. And so I then went and found using, this is before the days of LinkedIn, but using that kind of same network, because this was in the 90s when I first started looking at it. I looked about it quite a while before I joined, actually. But then when I more seriously looked at into joining, we do informal socials once a month on the first Thursday, imaginatively called First Thursday. And so we would be happy to take people along to that and who are interested in learning more. And that's exactly what I did. I found somebody through my network that actually was a member, and I said, how can I find out more? And it was all led by the hand from there onwards. So it was my interest in trying to do more, but trying to do it based out of my trade, my chosen profession, and a historical connectivity with the square mile. That was the combination.
Thank you. Dave, you've got your hands up.
Yeah, I'm actually not going to ask the question I was about to ask about 30 seconds ago. I might come back to that if we have time later on. But for me, I think the kind of the overlaps between, oops, I'm going to put my hand down. The overlaps between these organisations is key, and for me, the overlaps between like working locally in Bristol and Bath and the specialist group point of view. So the specialist groups providing the kind of technical expertise, and ideally the branch providing a kind of, there's almost like a layered model. And in fact, we've got some stuff going on with, hopefully with NetFriends quite soon, who have this notion of a kind of a layered support model for doing exactly this, but for helping out people who need the help by having volunteers who might not have the same skills going out and helping people face to face, and then with a kind of a backup support network of volunteers who can not go out and do the stuff, but be ready by phone or by Zoom or something to help out when necessary. But that for me speaks to this kind of general getting people involved in charity work, getting people with IT, with digital skills involved in charity work. And I found it kind of tricky to get people to volunteer for stuff. And one thing I am sort of keen on playing with and seeing if it works out is saying, this is CPD. When you're helping out charities at this level, when you're doing this kind of stuff, this is not just about being altruistic and helping other people. This is about learning new stuff, learning new skills. And I guess it's not really a question. I'm kind of just cheekily throwing in a comment here. But how does that work? How do you think that works? Is this something we can do? Or this is me taking advantage of your expertise, I guess. How do we get more people involved? Because there's loads of people here today now, and there's 60,000 people that we've got as members. How do we use what you've just said as an inspiration to get people out who've got the right skills to get involved? Where do we go next, I guess?
So if I can get Jason and Sean to say a few words, if I can sort of steer you a little bit too, I remember, Jason, that session that we have at Thames Reach about homelessness, and I know you're working on it. Maybe you can say something about that as a way about what's WCIT, but also how can we then open up to BCS members to get involved, and also others outside of BCS and WCIT also, right?
There are existing volunteering opportunities for people like Thames Reach, but that could be done, and we can be a broker. I mean, we often act as a broker in lots of ways because of our, like I said, leveraging the network, but not having the scale. Thames Reach, we're specifically trying to look at more volunteering opportunities, but they are based predominantly in South London. So it's a very sort of, you need to be able to get to South London. And what I think is exciting, and I know that Freddie and some of the BCS are working on pilots around networks of helping people, maybe not in this sector, but actually helping, elderly, or doing, education, children, kind of other areas. But it's obviously applicable here. I would get excited about the possibility of us coming up with a framework that could allow people to give a small or large amount of their time to actually, be part of a help desk kind of facility, because when you talk about, you know, the digital poverty, it's device, it's connectivity, and then it's what to do with it when you've got it. So the device bit, you can sort of throw money at. You can buy laptops, you can make better use of secondhand, get it to the right people. Connectivity is hard, but you can also throw money at it. You know, the getting social tariffs is helping a bit. But, you know, making that a utility rather than actually something that the people have to fight for. The bit that's often hardest is that how do you train people? How once they've got the device, once they're online, how do they know how to use it? And that's something that I would like us to maybe partner on and think about. If we could come up with some kind of framework of how people could say, I'm happy to do, you know, Thursday night for 2 hours, and then that could actually be a hotline that somehow we get the right people can actually connect to, either online or via the old school phone or whatever. That's something where I think, you know, if you're talking about tens of thousands of people, it might be viable to have somebody, you know, always there at the end of the line.
So if it's okay with you, I'll link you in privately with NetFriends, because they have a model, they have a suggestion model. Now it might not be the right model, but it's a starting point for discussion to have a model that says, yeah, we've got volunteers to do some stuff, we've got different volunteers to do different stuff. How do we build that model to make it work? So that's exactly where I'm coming from. Thanks, Jason.
Brilliant.
Thank you. Mark, do you want to go next?
Yes. Hi. Jason, just introduce myself. So I'm the secretary for the Digital Divide Specialist Group. I'm also a IT student, a software engineering student with the OU. I also, so I'm an IT project manager, kind of in my real life. But one of the things that I'm doing locally in Wolverhampton is helping to deliver some ICT skills in that very same space that you just spoke about there. And it's in two interrelated locations. None of it's joined up, and this is a big thing that we keep identifying, that and Freddie keeps pushing, it's the joining the dots piece. And there's a lot of stuff that's going on in the city and across the county, but it's not been joined up. It's interesting because I'm helping to work with one particular charity who have got a quite mature delivery mechanism for devices. They've got data connectivity, all of this through the Good Things Foundation. And they've now just started to deliver some ICT skills training, which I'm sliding in to assist with. And they started to get students from Wolverhampton University in to help deliver that as an extra credit piece, just on the side, an hour or so a week, just to assist in delivering that. So I'm helping do that. But then on the flip side, a mile away, you know, it's a mile away, a different organization. They are completely at the other end of the spectrum. They have nothing's in place. They've got aspirations. So what I'm doing, I'm helping to set that up and help deliver that myself at that location, with the aspiration of helping to bring people through, maybe even tap into the student kind of population from this other organization, and then kind of and join these dots. And the reason I bring it up is because I think there's a lot of this that's about across the country. But that framework, being able to plug and play, I think you're absolutely on the right track. Trying to find something which is an easy framework to be able to get someone to deliver is both hard and easy. So I've found so that the government actually has an ICT skills kind of framework questionnaire set of what someone should be able to do at a basic level to be able to access government programs and online resources, this and the other. So that's what we've been using as a very basic level. So I just think if we could escalate that and make that bigger and easier to find, and use that as the baseline, I think that'd probably help. That's just my kind of 5 cents, Will.
Yeah, no, you're quite right. There is low, and the lockdown, you know, really accelerated a lot of that as well. The tech community aid that I cited as an example grew out of just people spontaneously trying to get stuff done in that part of Lambeth. And there's examples of those across the piece. The Good Things Foundation has done a really good job of trying to collate some of those resources and helping them and accessing them for people. But it's also a topic of discussion at the DPA, the Digital Poverty Alliance, that is a really, getting an online map of the UK with access to services, and there's a few people that are working on initiatives to do exactly that, so that you could actually find these things more easily, and also we can connect them up together so that they are leveraging the resources and experience of each other. So there's back to Freddie's join the dots, there's lots that can be done just by better coordinating what's being done already.
Thank
That's
you.
definitely an area of focus.
Yeah, what I'd like to do is I would like to get Elizabeth Anderson, the CEO of the Digital Poverty Alliance, to jump in here. Hi, Elizabeth. Thanks for joining us. The DPA, has been, I'm so delighted there's the existence of such a thing, because now it enables us to be able to be even more joined up at all levels, from government departments, government party, political parties, to corporates, to grassroots communities, to even individuals. So Elizabeth, if there's a message for us, what would you like us all to do to help you? Because your organization is now providing that framework, that umbrella for all of us to do something about this, right? So over to you.
Thank you very much, Freddie. The DPA, for those who haven't come across before, as the guys highlighted earlier on, we're bringing together companies, we're bringing together charities, we're bringing together government departments, we're bringing together community groups, because we can only tackle digital poverty by everyone coming together, and that's about being much more than the sum of its parts. Joining up those dots, which is something that Freddie talks about a lot, and then actually being coordinated in an approach to help people. And that is going to be a mix of national solutions and local solutions, but the more we can do to bring that together, the faster we will get there. And the DPA's goal is to end digital poverty once and for all by 2030, which is it's an ambitious goal, but it's really important, because people can't go on being disconnected in the way that so many people are at the moment. Big call to action, please go on Digital Poverty Alliance website, which is digitalpovertyalliance.org, and click join the hub and become part of the conversation that we're having about how we're going to end this. The big thing that we're going to be launching in 2023 is our national delivery plan, and that's going to be picking up on the landmark evidence review that we released at the House of Lords earlier this year, which had 6 main evidence-led recommendations on how to tackle digital poverty. So that national delivery plan will break that down into actual granular detail in terms of practical and incremental changes that we need to see over the coming year, over the medium term, and in the long term as we run up to 2030. So we'd love you to be part of that conversation. We'd love you to be sharing your experiences. We'd love you to be sharing your resources, your research, the activities that you've got going on. And as we progress through the work on the National Delivery Plan, we would really value people who can step up and say, here's an area that I'm interested in. I can do something about this. I can make connections. I can link you up with relevant government departments. We're a group of people that will volunteer to look at this perhaps on a local level. We are also, alongside that big strategic piece, which is about leading systemic societal change, we're also helping people who can't wait until 2030 through a range of projects, which gives connectivity, laptops, skills, mentoring to people who need it right now in different settings. So we have a Tech for Teachers program, we have a Tech for Prison Leavers program, we've got some more coming next year, but we also have Tech for Families, which is a scheme that is funded through the generosity of customers of Currys, who are one of our founding partners. Again, if anyone is interested in talking about those in more detail without taking over Freddie's event, given I'm not actually even a speaker on this event, I'd be really happy to chat to you in a bit more detail about those things we've got coming up and how we can create the evidence base around the support that people need and how that can prove the case for government in terms of why we need to provide support to groups of people who are currently more likely to be disconnected. I think it's fantastic that you've got this focus today on people who are currently experiencing homelessness, because that is just one such group of people who have a massive barrier, but for whom digital access can be so vital. So thanks very much, Freddie.
Yeah, thank you. And from my perspective, you can see right today in this event alone, yeah, we're seeing the joining up of the BCS, the WCIT, the DPA, right? You know, at that top level, right? And the specific area that we're talking about today here is homelessness. And Sean, I just want to refer back to your slide where you talk about how WCIT, BCS talk together. And one of the things that you talk about is how we can by doing this, we can scale that sort of approach. Do you want to say a few more words about how, if anybody who's interested, to either get involved via the WCIT or the BCS?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Freddie. I mean, I was going to also say about, I think the question that really came from Day was about, you know, how do we get more people involved? How do we get more action and all the rest of it? Something that we're going to be pushing WCIT, it will be like, I know it's not going to make a major difference, but certainly I think it's a step forwards, is, you know, we're going to push some volunteering days, because a lot of organizations, you now get time off of volunteering. You know, I think for us, I think it's a really great step forward that we say, okay, there's a particular cause, yeah, or, you know, something that we want to put our weight behind. We like to have some volunteers for this volunteer on the specific days, and to do these specific things, whether they are, you know, the company that we support, Thames Reach, or other charities as we see fit. And I see very much the same sort of thing with regards to the BCS. You know, let's try and, obviously with the special digital divide special group, we can look to try and get some volunteering days as well there. I think, you know, obviously the dashboard that you bring up, Freddie, talks about some of the areas that are sort of more need than others to be addressed. And I think digital competence, as you've highlighted, is one of those real areas that it's already been piloted by the Scottish Tech Army and Sky. But yeah, you know, obviously we do have members of both organisations. It's great if we could really sort of like, you know, have a groundswell of support in this area and really start to move the dial ultimately on this, as was said by Jason.
So that brings us to pretty much the end of this webinar. But before I end this webinar, I'd like to say a few more words. One is Elizabeth talked about the sort of national delivery plan. I want to make sure that everybody is aware. You know, the BCS, for example, we are sort of pledging two initiatives. One is the technical support, you know, the corporate world's equivalent for the real world, whereby, you know, we're giving people devices with no support. So we're doing a pilot there. So if you want to know more, you want to help, that's one huge potential area. The other one that we do is the National Catalog of Digital Personas. Again, if you are building apps these days, we need to make sure that it's more fit for purpose, it's more inclusive. How do we make sure that that is the case? So we need to have a sort of catalog that we can say, okay, these are all the personas that we need to design for. So I just want to put it out so that everybody is aware. Jason, any final words from you before we conclude this call today?
Well, once again, thank you ever so much for the opportunity. It's great for both organisations to learn more about each other and get even closer, but more importantly, to actually try and translate it into action. That's the most important thing. So I'm glad we've got some ideas already of how we could do more of that, and that will bring the greatest satisfaction out of this if we can actually advance towards that vision that we outlined towards the beginning. So thanks very much again for the opportunity. Okay, and on behalf of the BCS, I will let Margaret have the last word, but on behalf of the BCS Digital Divide Specialist Group, really want to thank Jason and Sean for doing this webinar today. And Margaret, I'm going to hand it over to you to close the proceedings. Yeah. You're on mute.
Yeah.
Margaret, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. First of all, I'd like to say a very great thank you to Jason and Sean. It was fantastic. Just to remind everybody that the slides, Jason or Sean, if you'd like to send them to me and I'll send them on to the BCS, and then that will be fine. They'll be up within maybe a week or so, apart from Christmas. And also we've kept the videoing right through because the questions were so interesting and the comments were so interesting. So the whole thing, including the questions, will be recorded. So this should be around in about 3 weeks again on the website. So do have a look at those again and pass it on to anybody that missed this session, because they could get a tremendous amount just from looking at the recording. And also on the thank you to Jason and Sean, I'll be sending an email to both of you to thank you officially on behalf of the specialist group, and hope you will actually choose a BCS book or ebook with our compliments to say thank you very much for this spectacular presentation. And at that stage, I think I'm sure people would actually like to use either show screens, or alternatively, they might like to use reaction just to say thank you very much.
Yeah, and in the spirit of celebrating Christmas, I know Davis and Mark is, so Merry Christmas, everybody. Yeah, and please join us in the new year. We will be having a webinar around the cost of living crisis. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you very
Thanks
much.
all. That was great. Thank you.
Happy
Thank you,
Christmas.
bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night.